everybody, and welcome to Staffordshire Business Festival. My name is Laura Hodgkiss and I'm the event and training team leader here at the Chamber. We are delighted to have our pre-recorded webinar of leadership. It's not just about the position, it's about the influence, and we are delighted to have with us today as our speakers Karen Castle, who is the Senior Lecturer in Leadership and Management, and John Horton, who is the Employee Partnership Development Officer at Staffordshire University. You'll notice that we are pre-recorded today, but if you do have any questions or anything like that, please don't hesitate to contact me at the end of the webinar once you have watched the whole webinar. This is a pre-recorded webinar, so if you know anybody that wants to watch it or you think would be absolutely fantastic for them to watch, please don't hesitate to look at our website where you'll be able to find a link to the website to send on to other people. With all that said and done, Karen, it's over to you.
Thanks, Laura. My name is Karen Castle and I'm the Senior Lecturer in the Business School at Staffordshire University. My specialism is leadership and management across a vast range of degree courses and the apprenticeship courses. And today I've been asked to talk to you about some of the content of leadership. What do we mean by leadership? What is it in the context of an organisation and in the context of it compared to management? So the title for the presentation today is Leadership. It's not about the position, but it's about the influence, and that theme runs central through all of the slides I'm going to show you, and it also runs central through the context of what we do in the business school at Staffordshire. Leadership is about influence. It is about how a leader can influence effectively and positively all the employees, all the team, to ensure that the organisation strives to meet its aims and objectives. So much though, and so often, leadership is seen about position, role, the power, the control over people, and indeed it is in some cases, but it's how that power is managed, and that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So going back to what I was saying about leadership being in context then, well, I've looked at it here in the context of it against management. So when we say managers and management, what do we really mean? Well, management and managing is the process of setting objectives and making the most efficient use of the financial resources, the human resources, the physical resources to make sure those objectives, those strategic organisational objectives are met. Some of the key tasks then that managers have are planning, aren't they? Control, coordinating, answering to stakeholders, answering to people who they are accountable for, owners of businesses. But leadership is something different, and it's very often meshed with management, but we want to separate it out. We want to say leadership is a separate skill, and quite a unique skill actually, because it's about influencing others to do that, to do those very things that the managers require of us to do. It's about influencing people to achieve those aims and objectives that are set at managerial level, at CEO level. And effective leadership skills can help a manager significantly to carry out their role. It can help a business to be successful. So we're concerned today with that bit, with the leadership bit of this, but not dismissing that there is a significant role as in management. So what are leaders concerned with then? What do they worry about? What are they accountable for? What are they responsible for? Well, they're responsible for the organisation's vision and the objectives and how the targets that are set by managers are met, and how they will then enable the organisation to achieve, to be successful, to grow, to develop, to progress. Particularly now, post-COVID, particularly since we're all in a slightly different arena now, aren't we? Things are different, very different, and they will be. We've got our leaders to look up to guide us through this. But are they going to be able to do that? Well, we argue that they will actually. They will, and they'll do it very well, providing they know what they're doing. They provide expertise. A leader has probably experienced a lot of these organisational situations of crises. They've fought through significant challenges, and that has led to them having something that is very valuable to the organisation, to the people that they're leading, and it's about expertise. They will therefore then set certain standards for the team, for the employees to follow. They will provide direction in carrying these standards out, and they'll provide guidance and support for staff. Now, it's how they do that that really matters. Now, we all know that we've worked for leaders who are more, that they generate more of a following than others. We've worked for leaders who really, some of us, if we're honest, perhaps wouldn't want to work for again. So in striving then to be a good leader, an effective leader, and to provide direction, guidance and support, we need to think very, very seriously and deeply and reflectively about how we do that. One of the things I'll mention later on is reflective leadership, reflecting on who we are as a leader, on how we are seen by others, and does that matter? Leaders will also ensure that policies and processes run smoothly. And I'm thinking health and safety, I'm thinking compliance, I'm thinking safeguarding, protection policies. It's essential that leaders know what they are and know how to get the staff to enable them to run smoothly. And ultimately, leaders are responsible and are accountable for staff and for certain tasks. Now, there'll be other concerns, an awful lot more other concerns for leaders too, depending on the particular organisation in which those leaders work. And organisations are different, aren't they? A public sector organisation is very different to a private sector organisation that is very different again to a charitable organisation. And all that matters. All that organisational structure and culture matters to the leader, because their leadership style will need to adapt accordingly. And we talk about leadership styles in a bit when we talk about theory, but that they matter, and they're different depending on what sort the organisation is. But the degree to which leadership tasks are successful depends on the degree to which they are carried out effectively. And that mantra runs through everything we do. Effective leadership, effectiveness. What is it? What makes an effective leader? Well, how do we know? How do we know when a leader is being effective? Well, we argue that effective leaders demonstrate emotional intelligence. Now, this might be new to some people, this notion of emotional intelligence. It might not be. We advocate emotional intelligence across all of our programmes and across a lot of our leadership and management delivery. And one of the main theorists, if you like, about emotional intelligence was a man called Daniel Goleman. And Daniel Goleman has written extensively on this issue, and he's provided YouTube clips on emotional intelligence. But essentially, he took the idea and he adapted it to a model. And that model is about the emotional leader being somebody who is reflective. Emotional intelligence. Psychologists grappled with this a while ago, and it's very often considered in areas of psychology. But psychologists propose several definitions, and they struggle to come up with a main one. However, I will attempt to come up with a definition now on what emotional intelligence is for us in terms of leadership here at the university. And it's understanding how the leader feels about themselves. So if I was a leader, it's me really knowing about me, about my emotions. Are they intact? Are they stable? Am I emotionally stable enough to be able to lead? In reflecting on myself, how do other people see me when I'm communicating? Am I coming across as aggressive, assertive, passive? And it's having an awareness of how your own emotional intelligence, your own emotions affect who you are as a leader. And that takes some doing, actually, if you've not done it before. It really does. To be reflective, truly reflective, to look in that mirror, to see everything coming back at you in terms of how you lead, warts and all, requires some strength. And it's that we argue we need to build up. So it's about knowing what my weaknesses are, what my strengths are. How can I turn my weaknesses into strengths? Or how can I mitigate any of those challenges that are inside of me, grappling with things that might reflect then on my staff? It's about knowing my staff, other people, knowing them. And one of the things I argue, as having been a leader in the public and private sector for several years, and continue to be so in terms of the staff that I lead, it's knowing your staff. Now, if somebody were to say to me, as a leader now and as a tutor, what's the one thing you would say is the key thing about being a leader? I would say know your staff, know who they are, what makes them tick, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, allow them to make mistakes. How we lead, the way in which we lead emotionally has a massive impact on the outcomes, on the outputs of the business. If staff are frightened to make mistakes, then they'll make mistakes anyway, because everybody does, but they'll probably cover them up. And you don't want to do that as a leader, because you want to know where the problems are. You want to know where they are at the earliest opportunity. So you want your staff to tell you, and they'll only do that if they feel safe to do so. So enable staff to make mistakes, but do it in a controlled way. And that depends on the sort of leadership style you provide. Is it a coaching, a mentoring? Is there a degree of autonomy? However, you're there, you've got an eye on them. That way, when they do make the mistake, you're there to pick it up. Okay, you've made a mistake, that's fine. Let's talk about it. Let's sort it out. Let's see what happened. Let's see how this mistake happened. How did it occur? And let's see now what we can do to progress it, to develop it so that we don't have any further mistakes. And all of that situation leads to being an emotionally intelligent leader, that you're not there saying, whose fault is this? Who did that? Why did this happen? That it's the way in which leaders, your leadership style is expressed matters massively. The other great strength of an emotional leader is that they actively listen. That's different from hearing what people are saying. It's very, very different. An active listener is somebody who really thinks about what's being said, who then maybe has some questions for themselves about it in their own heads. Actively listening. It's a game changer in terms of emotional intelligence, because then the people who are talking know that you're actively taking part in the communication. You're not just there as a figurehead because you need to be there ticking boxes or whatever. So take part in the conversations. You know, when your team are telling you something, take part in it. I'm not saying that people don't, but actively listening is a big part of emotional intelligence. So leading on from that then, and this emotionally intelligent leader, comes this thing called inspiration. Now, there is a leadership style, actually, and theorists have argued about aspirational leaders, inspirational leaders, charismatic leaders. And we're talking a bit about a trait leadership style, because what they're saying there is, in a sense, a charismatic leader is somebody who exudes charisma. And then others would argue, well, that can't be learnt. You know, that's a trait. That somebody is born with that. I would argue against that. However, emotionally intelligent leaders are inspirational. They inspire staff. It's about enabling staff to feel confident and safe and secure in their work. They show fairness, trust and honesty. There's nothing worse as a leader as coming across as favoritism over one or several staff over another, a lack of parity. That comes out as poor leadership. It can be construed as very poor leadership. So emotionally intelligent leaders, effective leaders, are fair. They are trustworthy. Now, this is also, I suppose, an example of this would be where a leader has news to pass to staff that they know the staff aren't going to like. So maybe, and I can give you a working example, a personal example, that we had a staff working on one weekend off, one weekend on, and we were going to have to, because of the business, they were going to have to work 2 weekends on and 1 weekend off. So I knew that news was going to be received not positively, really, and not well. So the way in which we did that, we spoke to the staff individually, we spoke to them together. I talked to them, I offered them the opportunity to come and talk to me on a one-to-one. But I explained that this was due to the finances of the business failing. And I had to come up with a working model that enabled us all to carry on working where we did when we were very happy. It was a successful business. However, we needed to look at changes, making changes. And I, as a manager, had to lead that change. As a leader, had to lead that change. But in showing fairness and trustworthy and being honest with them and saying, I know this isn't going to go down well. It's news that you don't want to hear. However, it's news that I have to give to you. And it is this, but this is how we will work it through together. And leading on from that then, and through circumstances such as that, we need to consider the ethical implications of being inclusive and of integrity. And that's fundamental to all leadership processes, to all leadership workings. And to enable all that to play out in practice is vital to the success of the business. I've talked about actively listening and communicating well. Communication, of course, isn't just verbal, is it? That's a small part of communication, we would argue. We would argue that the biggest part is in the non-verbal communication, in the body language, in emails, in reading, in understanding, in getting your head around things, is arguably as important as the verbal communication. And there are more of those. It's like the old saying, isn't it? Actions speak louder than words. And I would say, yes, they do, actually, in some cases. Leaders also need to be assertive. And when we think about what Eric Byrne said about transactional analysis, we can all communicate in 3 ways. We can all be aggressive, we can all be childish, and we can all be assertive and communicate as an adult. And that's where we want to aim. That's what we want to get, this assertive communication, because that exudes positivity in a lot of cases. And in many cases, being assertive creates this feeling of positivity, of safety and of security. Leaders need to use their power in an appropriate manner. Leadership is a powerful position. And maybe in some cases, leaders become leaders and expect, because of their position, to exude this power. I think not, actually. I think they might do, but what sort of team then? What sort of leadership are you leading over? If you are a leader and you understand that position is powerful, however, I need to be inspirational, I need to be emotionally intelligent, then that's different. Then I think you're on the way to a successful leadership career. So if power is used appropriately and with feeling and with understanding and with emotional intelligence, then I would say that you would successfully lead your team. You would successfully lead a developing, a progressive organisation, and you would successfully lead your team through the challenges of the pandemic. So let's look at some of the things that are considered when we look when perhaps leadership isn't as effective. And we would argue that that's what we've just said is a misuse of power. And I'd probably put that at the top, actually, that one gets in this position as a leader or has a manager in their title and automatically think, well, that's me, you know, I can pretty much do what I like. I can talk to people in whichever way I want to, and they must obey me because I am the leader. That's perhaps not appropriate in a lot of circumstances, because then you're less likely to know your staff. You're less likely to know and understand who they really are, because they might not tell you. They might be frightened to tell you. They might be scared. So by understanding your staff and knowing them will create an arena where there's less of an opportunity for you to misunderstand, misinterpret them, what they're doing. We also argue that ineffective leadership is not understanding the notion of a leadership style and how that is played out. We'll talk about styles in a bit, but not knowing yourself as a leader, not knowing how you come across to the staff, can have a massive challenge and put a barrier up to effective leadership. A lack of critical reflection on how you lead. So what I'm saying there is not stopping to think what you did in that certain circumstance, how you led that particular situation, how you got over that emergency scenario. Think about it. How did you do it? What did you do? What did you say? What were your actions that led to the successful parts of that? And what were the others? Where weren't you successful? What did you do wrong? It doesn't matter that you did make a mistake necessarily. What matters is you learn from it. And if we think about John Dewey, who was arguably one of the big important reflective theorists of the time, he said people don't learn from the situation. They learn from their reflection of the situation. And that's what we're talking about. And that's what we mean by critical reflection. What went on? What did I do that was received well, that led to a successful outcome? But what did I do that I wasn't happy with? What did I do that created more problems for us? And so what can I now do to enable that to improve? Critical reflection is vital. A lack of emotional intelligence, I think we've spoken about that. Poor communication and direction, I think we've spoken about that too. A failure to take responsibility. Now, this is a tricky balance, because what we're saying on one hand is you're the leader with the responsibility and accountability, but now we're saying, hang on a minute, failure to take that responsibility can have unfortunate consequences. So we want you to take the lead and exude this power, but we want you to do it in a way that is appropriate. So that's what we're saying. And finally, on this slide anyway, although there will be many more things I'm sure you can consider that lead to effective leadership in your own organisations, but for us for now, the final thing is to promote an inappropriate workplace culture. And as I've said, the blame culture doesn't normally create opportunities for good results. It doesn't normally lead to a successful and a pleasant working environment. And this notion called culture, well, we could talk all day on that alone, actually, organisational culture. There are whole degrees on just that subject, and we're just going to talk about it in a few minutes. But what we mean by the culture is the type of organisation, the behaviours, the values and the principles of that organisation, the people within it. the policies within it, how it is seen by society in general. That's workplace culture in a nutshell. And if that isn't right, then everything will be off kilter. Okay, so let's look at what we think we need to consider when we're thinking about leading a successful team. And I'm not making any apologies for repeating this. Top of our list, top of my list is always know your players, know their strengths and know their limitations, know where their weaknesses are as individuals. Everybody has them. Everybody has strengths and everybody has weaknesses. But as a leader, you need to know what they are in your staff. And how you do that will depend on the organisation, won't it? And it'll depend on who you are and how you feel best in communicating. It might be that you prefer to sit with them at the coffee break, in the lunch break. It might be that you prefer a more formal meeting, a discussion. It might be that you have a staff one-to-one session every week with everybody. The business might be too big for that. So you need to create opportunities for your team, for your staff to share with you what their thoughts are, where they want to be. Now, a lot of that's done at annual report, isn't it? Annual staff report, or whatever you call the yearly updates for the staff. But I would say it needs to happen much more frequently than yearly. Daily would be great. 3-4 times a week would be brilliant. Twice weekly is okay. But again, you decide. But whatever you need to do, the leaders need to know who their staff are. That will then lead to being able to promote complementary skills. Now, I know this might have to happen at appointment and recruitment stage. When you're recruiting staff, knowing what skills you've got on your staff then determines what other skills you need. There's no point in having a staff team with all the same skills. It needs to be complementary. A successful team, a consideration is knowledgeable recruitment and appointment and development of staff, and having that as quite a prime consideration. Supporting collaborative working, both within the team and between the team and stakeholders. This notion about collaboration. Do we work in silos? Is that their office and this our office, and never the twain shall meet, or only when it's convenient? Or is it much more of a collaborative environment? Do each know what each are doing? Do they need to? Clarity of direction. There's nothing worse than having a leader who knows that they might very well know themselves where you want to be. They might very well know the targets, but then somehow within that leadership thing, it gets the main message gets diluted or contaminated, so that when it comes out to the staff, it's something very different. So clarity of direction is vital. Clarity in communication as well, because you can't really have one without the other. Motivation, influence and persuasion. They are 3 massive skills that good leaders possess. They do motivate staff. They can motivate staff by the way in which they talk, by the way in which they involve staff, by their mannerisms, by who they are. And therefore, once their staff are motivated, they are more likely to be able to be influenced and persuaded to do things, which as a leader you need to do. Can you demonstrate integrity, trust and inclusivity? And can you empower individuals? Empowering is very important. To people who feel empowered are more likely to work well for you. How you empower them is, in a sense, up to you as a leader or as an organisation. But it's well worth doing. The difficulty there, and there's always a flip side, isn't there? But the difficulty is, once these empowered staff are empowered, that they don't then go off on a tangent doing stuff that you don't know about. So that's a leadership, another leadership skill to hone. So I've mentioned some bits of theorists, haven't I? Let's now have a look at just some of it. Now, if you were to look at leadership theories, leadership models, leadership styles, they're all, it can get a bit deep and it can get a little bit confusing and a little bit heavy on the academic side. Well, we aim to unpick that a bit And what we're saying is, do you know what? There is this thing called leadership theory, and it is incredibly important. But this is how it is played out in practice. Look, if we think about an autocratic leader, they are the leaders who dictate. In an autocratic organisation, the decisions are made at the top by a few people and disseminated down through an autocratic style. It's sometimes thought of, it's my way, you do it this way, or you don't, or I'm afraid you need to leave. It's my way or the highway. Sometimes how it's put across. The autocratic leadership will dictate how something is done. Now, that might be essential in some organisations. I'm not arguing whatsoever that we should never have this style. On the contrary, but I'm saying we need to know what it is, we need to know how it is, and we need to know how it can be interpreted by those who are being told what to do. Then there's democratic style. This is much more working together. It's much more involving people in some of the decisions that need to be made. So you will tell the team what the options are, maybe, and then listen to what they say, and then having listened to what they've said, active listening, decided on what's going to happen. You may still be making your decision, but it will be informed by what your team, what the employees also are feeling. Then there's a laissez-faire style. This is the opposite of autocratic in a way, because this is the leader saying, you carry on, you've got the skills, you know what you're doing, I trust you, you go on and do it and make the decisions. And that's very often seen in the creative industries. So artists, for example, if and I'm not by any means, but if I was leading an artists retreat or whatever they're called, I might say, go off and be creative and come back with your whatever it is you produced. I don't want to be sitting on their shoulder making sure what they've done is correct. So there are contexts that these leadership styles sit best in, and you will know from your organisation which style would be best suited, or maybe a combination. Now there's the thing. So what we're saying now is, well, maybe as a leader, you do need to be at times autocratic. You do need to have this back off approach, and you need to be democratic. So maybe a combination or an adaptation of styles would be good. Some other leadership styles, some theories are transitional theory. This is when there's a payoff. So I will give you this for that in return. It's a reward and sanctions theory. Some people say, oh, well, we do that anyway because I work and you pay me. That's the transition, isn't it? Well, arguably it is, but it might be employee of the week. I don't know. There might be a monetary reward. There might be a performance-related pay. But the transitional style is definitely, there's a you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. There's a payoff. There's a quid pro quo in that. The transformational style, this is where there's a transformation. So it's about leading change. It's seeking change. It's seeking to improve. There's an empowering element of this and an inspirational element of this in terms of the leadership, because what we're saying is I will inspire you to improve through this transformation. I will inspire you through this transformation. I will empower you through this transformation. Bureaucratic leadership, this is quite hierarchical, so it's followed by the book. What are the rules? What are the regulations? We must follow them and then tick the boxes when we've done them. This is probably more formal, a formal style of leadership. Bureaucratic and charismatic. I think we mentioned earlier, the leader has natural charisma. So when we talk in a minute about a trait theory, that's where we're getting to now. So there are just a few of the types of leadership styles that come out of some theories. There are lots more, but we've just chosen a few to talk about there. And what we're saying about trait theory is demonstrated here in terms of it being leaders are born and not made. So the argument for trait theorists is a leader is born. You can't make a leader. They are who they are. They are charismatic. They are inspirational by the mere fact of their learnt behaviour through their life. And we've said there we are, leaders are born and not made. Leaders possess certain key personality traits which identify them as natural leaders. So you'd say, you know, he's a natural leader. How many times have we heard that? Some traits are particularly suited to leadership, and that might be a strong communicator. People who make good leaders have the right combination of traits, and that's another argument in terms of the trait theory. And then on the other hand, if you like, there's the behavioural theory, behaviourists, and what they're saying is, well, these theories advocate that leadership is shown by acts rather than traits, and leadership is the result of an effective role behaviour. So you can learn to be an effective leader. They are unique traits, and people can learn them in order to become better leaders or good leaders. And it's based upon the belief that good leaders are made and not born. So there's two opposites, and most of the other theory sits somewhere in between those. For example, situational leadership. This is an adaptive leadership style, and this strategy encourages leaders to take stock of their team members. It's about weighing up lots of variables, weighing up the options. So what will work best here? What are my options? What aren't my options? What can I use? What can I use a bit of? What can I use a lot of in order to make my decision, in order to inform my leadership? And there's lots written on situational leadership theory. I won't go through that slide in any detail now, but the outline in the model is there. And then there's contingency theory. And this says, well, my leadership style, plus all of those situations and all of those variables, lead to my contingency plan. And that's quite a simple concept, really, to get our heads around. So contingency theory is all about having contingency plans, because I know who I am as a leader, I know who my staff are, and I know what my options are, so I can come up with a contingency. And that is now, that's a theory that we can draw on. I won't dwell too much on theories, because I said I wouldn't, and that we do that far more when we really do get under the skin of what leadership is and why. But theories help us. They help us to justify decisions. They help us to justify leadership situations that maybe are difficult to get our heads around. In terms of an academic programme on leadership, then they're vital in supporting what we're arguing. When we encourage leadership students to build up an argument, an academic would call it an argument. We encourage them to build up these arguments and to say, I believe in this because. Then they need to go to the theory. I believe in this because. Then they need to draw on their personal experience and marry it up with the theory to come up with a justification. That's what we're all about. So we're not just saying, I am a leader because my job title says so, so therefore I can say this. No, you can't. Therefore, you can suggest it, but now let us help you to really, really dig down and pick out what you mean and grapple with these notions. So that's nearly me. And to summarise then what we've said that leadership is this inspirational role, isn't it? And it's hugely influential. It is not just a powerful position. It's only effective when people and teams are clear about their roles and responsibilities, and that they are comfortable and they feel safe in going about these. The effective leader demonstrates emotional intelligence. They are assertive, approachable, and they demonstrate a high degree of inclusion, integrity, and ethics. And they display this with an honesty and integrity that inspires and motivates and supports their staff to achieve the organisational aims. Well, that finishes my presentation. I hope some of it has been useful. We would like to hear from anybody who is interested in knowing more. But now I'm going to hand over to my colleague John, who will take it a little bit further. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that, Karen. I'll just share my screen, my slides. Okay, I hope you can all see those. Okay, My name is John Horton and I'm the Employer Partnerships Development Officer. And at Staffordshire University, we're offering free short CPD courses in a variety of different areas at the moment, and there will be more to follow. So as you can see, we'll be offering short courses in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, which is to better protect yourself and your business against obviously cybersecurity threats. There'll be web-based computing courses, which is more website specific and touches on some web programming and how to get the best out of your website. Then we've got Amazon Web Services, which is predominantly around cloud computing. And finally, as you've just heard Karen talking about, we've got managing leadership and performance courses, delving into that area of knowledge. We also offer other projects within the team. So we've got funded support for prototyping and new product development. So that's Staffordshire University helping businesses in Staffordshire to improve, design and build new products, and you can get involved in that. We've got funded support for innovation in transport, logistics and mobility, which is all about the greener movement of goods and people around the world. So any company involved in that area, again, we could help out. So if you're interested, if you are, then please get in touch. We've got a new incubation and startup hatchery, which is on site. And within that, you would have access to a lot of specialist equipment on the ground floor, which saves a lot of money from an R&D point of view. We obviously offer apprenticeships in a variety of subject areas. Should you be looking to recruit, we've got the hiring of students and graduate talent, and we'd offer a full wraparound service to help you recruit the right person. And finally, if you're a larger company watching, we do obviously support with things like Innovate UK bids and KTPs. So if you are interested in any of that and you wish to email us, please email us at employers@staffs.ac.uk. Or otherwise, if you want to look at more the information in more detail, then you can visit our website, www.staffs.ac.uk/business services. I hope you do have some interest and I hope you do get in touch with us, but that's everything from me, so thank you.
Wonderful, John and Karen. That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for being a part of our business festival. Like Karen said, there are lots of fantastic ways that you can get through to Staffordshire Uni. If you do want any contacts with there, please don't hesitate to contact me. I am all over the Chamber's website and you'll be able to find my contact details there, and I'll be able to pass it over to Karen and to John. Once again, I want to thank you for being part of this leadership webinar today, and you should be able to see, just in case you do want to rewatch it or you want anybody else to rewatch it, you will be able to find this pre-recorded webinar on our website at the Chamber, Staffordshire Chambers of Commerce website. Once again, thank you both for being speakers today at our business festival, and we look forward to hopefully seeing you all soon. Bye for now.